We'll be talking about Bihar, but since you also talked about our party and the way our party has evolved, so I guess I need to say a few things about that too. And obviously, today in 2025, we cannot be just talking about one single elections. We have to talk about the entire system in the country. And for us, we are very, very clear that we are facing a fascist offensive. No ifs and buts. We are facing a fascist offensive in the country today. And if we allow this fascist offensive to grow stronger, and if it can get more entrenched, there will be hardly any democracy left in the country. So, with this, let me first begin by giving an introduction about our party. As you said, that our party is from the old Naxalbari upsurge, the old CPIML, and the old CPIML, the undivided CPIML, of course, used to give a call for boycotting elections. Now, that call for boycott of elections in the 1970s, early 70s, I guess that was not just because we believed that this whole system is a bourgeois system and what job can a Communist Party have fighting an election in a bourgeois system. That was not the case. The case was that after Naxalbari, for right or wrong, we had perception, we had analysis that we were in a revolutionary situation in India. So what needs to be accomplished is revolution itself. And when a party believes that you can have revolution on your immediate agenda, then obviously a lot of other things, routine things, take a back seat. You don't spend your time doing the routine things which you will otherwise do in a long haul. So that's how the elections boycott call was given. Because after all, Charu Majumdar himself fought an election, a by-election in 1964 after the India-China war. And he polled some 4,000 votes in Siliguri in a by-election, and he was very happy that even in a by-election against hyper-nationalism, against jingoism, and talking about revolution, talking about land rights, he could poll 4,000 votes. That was before the United Front government came to power in West Bengal. And then we know 67 happened, and the Congress lost its kind of domination. There were 9 non-Congress governments in 9 of India's states, and West Bengal was one of them, and Naxalbari happened, and the CPIML was formed. Till the middle of 1980s, we were boycotting elections. And boycott was a very peaceful thing. Nobody hardly bothered. I mean, if you are boycotting an election, fine. So, in the middle of the 80s, 1980s, as we were working on every other front, the peasant movement, the urban poor, the rural poor, women, Dalit movement, students, youth. So we thought that probably it would make sense to also intervene in the electoral arena. Because after all, if we say that we are boycotting an election, you can boycott something that you have. But the people we were representing in Bihar, the landless poor, the Dalits, they didn't really have their voting right. So their names probably used to be there on the electoral rolls, but their votes were always, because the booths were captured and somebody else voted for them. So they absolutely had no voting freedom. So it was the feudal forces who used to determine where the votes should go. So you cannot possibly be claiming that, well, I'm boycotting something. You can only boycott something that you have. You can give it up if you want. But something here, you don't have it. And so there's no point in claiming that we are boycotting elections. So we thought, rather than boycotting something that we don't have, let us try and reclaim this voting right, exercise this franchise. And this is what brought us to the electoral arena. Not that armed struggle is useless and there is no future in that. Somebody calls it a U-turn. I said, absolutely not. We didn't commit a U-turn. This is a continuous journey. It is a continuum. So we believed that the same things that we have been fighting for, if we could make elections also an arena for that struggle, a vehicle for that struggle, then maybe it's worth an attempt. So that's what brought us to the electoral arena. And 1989 was the first Lok Sabha election we won. You remember that we won 2 Lok Sabha seats this time as part of the India coalition in 2025. Of course, it has its significance. But for me, the 1989 victory, when we were fighting independently, and a lot of the people who are voting for us were voting for the first time in their lifetime. We fought against booth capturing. And in a seat like Ara, which used to be a strong feudal bastion, till the 1970s, till the 1980s, where nobody could think of, some landless poor leader from some caste, very marginalized caste. It's in today's parlance, it will be called an EBC, extremely backward caste. It's called Nonia caste, who are the earth diggers, soil diggers in Bihar. So very few in number, numerically, and obviously no social influence, no political clout, nothing. So a leader from that caste, he became our MP. The first attempt itself, we got something like 178,000 votes, and that was enough in that multipolar kind of an election for us to win the seat. And as I told you, 50% of those voters, probably roughly, let's say 80,000 or maybe 1 lakh, they were voters who voted for the first time, and they had to pay a heavy price. The day the election was over, in the same evening, there was a massacre. You hear about a lot of massacres in Bihar. People generally call it caste massacres. And a lot of people will blame CPIML for its kind of adventurous politics as inviting these massacres by doing irresponsible things. So if we did anything irresponsible, that was simply to claim the voting right. We claimed our voting right, people voted for the first time, and the system was such, the social setting, social context, the political system was such that 22 people were gunned down for exercising their franchise right to vote, something which is very sacrosanct, which is a fundamental cornerstone bedrock of our constitution. For doing something like as elementary as that, 22 people had to sacrifice their lives. That was 1989. That brought us into the electoral era. So the agenda of the people, the interests of the same people, which we have been defending by whatever means we have, and that's what we have been doing all these years. So this is why today, when we find that the entire electoral rolls are being attacked, this SIR, they call it a special intensive revision. And a lot of you must have already followed that this SIR is something which actually didn't exist in the lexicon of the Election Commission. You have intensive revisions, you have some special summary revisions, but the Election Commission never before conducted any single special intensive revision, that too on a statewide basis. So this SIR, even by its own terminology, is something new, something unprecedented, what is happening. And as we have been saying, that this is actually not intensive revision, this is an invasive reconstruction. Invasive reconstruction of the electoral roll. That is, if we are just looking at it in terms of the elections. But if we take a deeper look and a slightly holistic look in its context, as you were saying that context is the key, every text has its own context. So in today's context, this SIR actually stands for subversion of Indian Republic. So beginning with the electoral roll, invasive reconstruction of the electoral roll, to subversion of the Republic as we have known it by the Constitution, by the preamble of the Constitution. So this is something what is happening in Bihar. So let me just tell you some in very brief outlines. So what is absolutely new in this SIR? Why do we call it a total radical rupture, a radical departure from the time-tested rules, conventions, procedures, practices in India's elections? So the first thing is, the Constitution obviously says that you need 3 kind of eligibilities to be a voter. An Indian citizen who has attained 18 years and is ordinarily resident of a particular area can get enrolled as a voter in the voter list. So here the presumption is, of course, that people in India, they are Indian citizens. So this presumption that we are all presumed to be Indian citizens unless somebody can prove otherwise. Unless somebody can prove otherwise. So presumption is that you are a citizen. Now that presumption is being overturned. Nobody is being presumed to be a citizen anymore. So this SIR clearly says that people whose names figure in the 2003 voter list, which is the cutoff year for Bihar, there will be different cutoff years probably for different states. I'm not too sure about it, as SIR gets replicated across the country, which is the clear-cut stated objective of the Election Commission. So 2003, so roughly Bihar has 8 crore voters, 8 crore let's say. So of that 8 crore, probably some 3 crore were there in the 2003 voter list. They say something close to 5 crore or 4 point something, but obviously a lot of people have passed away since 2003. A lot of people may have permanently moved away from Bihar. So effectively speaking, you have some 3 crore voters left from the 2003 voter list. So their citizenship is still being presumed. They are given the benefit of doubt. But the other 5 crore, whose names actually got enrolled in the subsequent electoral rolls, they will have to prove their citizenship. That is the fundamental thing of this SIR. And they will have to prove it by submitting certain documents. And the documents, the Election Commission has given a list of 11 documents. And they call it an indicative list. That's why the Supreme Court suggested that since it is an indicative list, you may well broaden it, you may well include a few more documents, like say Aadhaar, like a ration card, like the voter list, a voter card, EPIC card, which the Election Commission has rejected. So far, the Election Commission has categorically rejected the Supreme Court suggestion for inclusion of these documents. So there are 11 documents, and of those 11 documents, one is called NRC, which doesn't exist in Bihar. NRC, as we know, is something which happened only in Assam. Only in Assam, where people looked at it as some kind of a solution to the Assam movement, to the Assam crisis, let's say. There has been a lot of, over demographic anxiety in Assam, lot of struggles, lot of movements. There has been an Assam Accord. So in Assam, people accepted this NRC, National Register of Citizens. And it took 6 years in Assam under the Supreme Court's own supervision. 2 rounds, 6 years, only 3.3 crore applicants in Assam. So to cover 3.3 crore over a period of 6 years, they produced 2 NRCs, and the final NRC, some 1.9 million, so close to 2 million, 19 lakh people were declared not sort of on the NRC, so they are out of the NRC. So remaining people are considered to be citizens, but the government of Assam doesn't accept it. They think that this NRC doesn't suit them. So they think that even those people whose names are there on the NRC, the government can very easily send them to the foreign tribunal, and they can detain them, they can even deport them, and that is kind of thing happening in Assam. So people whose names are there on NRC, they are being deported, they have been deported. These are the people who have been chased away from Gurgaon, Bengali-speaking Muslim migrants from Assam, whose names are there on the NRC, but they have been driven away from Gurgaon along with migrant Bengali-speaking workers from West Bengal. Now anyway, so this is the NRC existed only in Assam. It doesn't exist in Bihar, but this 11 list documents, it includes NRC. So now the Election Commission initially suggested that the people of Bihar, all 8 crore of them, they will be given an enumeration form. Everybody will have to submit that enumeration form. So even those whose names are there on the 2003 voter list, they forget or miss to submit the enumeration form, their names will not be there on the new voter list. So everybody will have to submit the enumeration form, but the post 2003 people, they will also have to submit documents, and that includes people, according to the Citizenship Act, people born after 1987. So they will have to submit their own birth certificates and one of either of their parents, and those born after 2003 December, they will have to submit the birth certificates or citizenship document proofs of both of their parents. So this is the kind of thing that the Election Commission expected the people of Bihar to do by 26th of July. So within just a period of 1 month, the circular came on 24th June and like demonetization, and the campaign began on 25th June and it was meant to be over by 26th July. Now the Election Commission then probably realized that if we stick to this deadline and insist on the submission of documents by all by 26th July, then probably some 40 to 50% people will not be able to do this. So this will be a massive disenfranchisement bomb. It's a time bomb which is still there, is ticking away. So that's when the Election Commission said, okay, for the time being, all that you have to do is just submit the forms. Don't bother about the documents now. Don't bother even submitting your current photograph now. That can be taken care of later. So that's how the Election Commission claims that we have had 99.9% or something like coverage. So SIR has been a huge success. It is patting its own back, but that is only insofar as just a submission of the forms is concerned. But even in this submission of the form stage, draft stage, you hear that 66 lakh people have been eliminated from the electoral roll. Now, who are these 66 lakh people? They are saying they had done a special summary revision after the Lok Sabha election. So we have a voter list which was released in January 2025. So when every time the voter list is revised, there is some kind of special summary revision. They look for people who have passed away, their names are eliminated. They look for people who may have got into the electoral roll from 2-3 different areas, so which they call duplication of entries. So they eliminate those duplication of entries. They look for people who have permanently moved away, because that is another eligibility consideration, that you have to be ordinarily resident of that particular area. Presumably they did all this before the January voter list. So between January and now this July, the Election Commission wants us to believe that 22 lakh people have passed away in Bihar. It defies all demographic trends. They want us to believe that 35 lakh people of Bihar, they have migrated permanently. Now this is something very interesting. This is going to affect Kerala too. If SIR, and we are trying our best to stop SIR in its tracks, in Bihar itself, so that the election, I don't know, Supreme Court will be hearing it on 12th and 13th of July, this August, and they will be judging the constitutionality and legality of the whole thing. But if it comes to Kerala, this will mean that migrant workers, people who migrate, so they are saying that you are no longer ordinarily resident. So you are not ordinarily resident of this or that panchayat or that town or that ward in this Kerala. So you have moved away. So if you have moved away permanently, if you are not ordinarily resident, you have permanently moved away. Then you vote where you are now. So this is the Election Commission logic, and Election Commission is applying this logic to get rid of 35 lakh Bihari workers as migrant workers. So these are the two big categories whose names have already been deleted from the electoral roll. Now, as I tell you that in all through August, when people will be submitting their documents, and very clearly, if the Election Commission does not accept the Supreme Court suggestion and insists on the kind of documents which it has been insisting on, like let's say matriculation certificate. How many people have got matriculation certificate? Even Very recently, we had a socio-economic survey done in Bihar, and we found only 15% people who actually got enrolled and completed their matriculation. All the others, they drop out even in the middle of that school education. How many people really have land ownership records? In fact, Bihar is having a land survey right now, and people who own land, they are in great crisis because over generations, land has been distributed within the family without any legal kind of documentation. So this is just in good faith. So if you ask for documents, if you ask for papers, a lot of people will not be able to show papers, and this is a huge industrial kind of corruption going on, updating of papers in Bihar. How many people own their own houses? If somebody is a beneficiary of so-called Pradhan Mantri Housing Yojana and all that, you don't get a house ownership record for that. So the people do not really have, large sections of voters in Bihar, they do not really have this kind of documents. So when they will not be able to submit those documents, what will happen? Now that is something mentioned in fine print. So what is mentioned is, for those forms which will be submitted without supporting documents, the ERO, who is basically a subdivisional officer, the electoral registration officer, he or she will have discretionary power to decide about all those cases. So the ERO, on the basis of what they call local investigation, they will decide. So it is the ERO, then the BLO, the booth level officer, and the bureaucracy on top, the district, state level officials. So you know what is going to be decided. So which will mean that in every constituency, there will be very meticulous clinical kind of surgery, very clinical kind of manipulation of the electoral roll. Names, and we already come across this. We are now doing a very solid booth level kind of cross check. We find people who are very much alive have been declared dead. If you happen to be a Dalit, if you happen to be a Muslim, if you happen to be a woman, there are more chances that you will declare dead even when you are very much alive. So that kind of errors driven by obviously social and political bias, that kind of errors have crept in. Then people who are dead, their names should be eliminated, fine. But then if you are among the poor, if you are among Dalits, if you are among Muslims, then chances are more that if you are dead, your names will be eliminated. But if you come from a privileged background, upper caste background, if you are with the NDA kind of supporting double engine government support, then even the dead names will continue. They are still continuing in the electoral roll even when 22 lakh names have been eliminated. And the migrant worker thing, which is absolutely dangerous, because a lot of people migrate, some people migrate very seasonally, but a lot of people, they may be away for a year, they will always go back to Bihar. In fact, the best example we have is the Corona lockdown period. When the lockdown happened, when the migrant workers didn't have any work in Kerala, in Tamil Nadu, in Karnataka, in Maharashtra, in Gujarat, they all went back to Bihar. In fact, even when there was no transportation, they walked back all the way to Bihar because that's where they belong to. That is the way migrant workers, this is how they relate to their places of origin. Now, if you just apply this ordinarily resident, if you have been residing here for the last 60 days, and if our BLO came and investigated, knocked on your door, and you didn't open your door, you are not there, so we will take you that you have moved away permanently, you are no longer ordinary resident of this area. So that is going to be a serious injustice to a whole lot of people. So this is what is now going on in Bihar. We are in the second month. The first month is over. The draft roll has come out. We know the contours of the whole thing. And the third thing which will happen is there will be a lot of new names will be added, which got added in Maharashtra. But the one good thing about Bihar is whatever happened in Maharashtra happened behind the scene. And people woke up only after the results were out. In Bihar, the good thing is the circular came out on 24th of June. It took the people some time to understand it, what is at stake, what is actually happening. But once the people got some sense of what is actually happening, they are on the streets. They are fighting. So we gave it a name called Vote Bandi, which is like demonetization is in Hindi, it was called Note Bandi. So this special intensive revision, people saw it as vote bandi. And now for this month of August, our slogan is Chunav Chor Gaddi Chor. This is the month of Quit India movement, 9th August. And this is the month of India's independence, 15th August. So here is an attempt to steal the elections, which is happening right in front of our eyes, quite openly, using apparently the Constitution of India as interpreted by the Election Commission, and trying out new paradigms of electoral conduct in the country. So openly they are doing it, the attempt to steal the elections, and here is Bihar trying to fight it out. So let us, I can see that people in Kerala are also interested, and you should be, because this is going to be applied. If they get away with it in Bihar, they will apply it everywhere. And Kerala, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal, and Assam are the four main states to go for the next elections, I think next summer, next May. So, and if it's going to happen, and Kerala, the Chief Election Commissioner, when he met him, he was telling us, Bihar results are very, very marginal, 5,000, 10,000 votes, and so many people are actually outside of Bihar. So in Kerala is much more marginal than Bihar, I think. So almost in every state, if you can manipulate a few thousand votes, if you can have that kind of a clinical surgery of the electoral roll, so you can manipulate the Kerala elections. So that is one thing. So this is the main topic that you wanted me to speak up about. But I will tell you that this is not just rewriting the electoral rolls. It is also rewriting the electoral rules. And when you are rewriting the electoral rules, you are actually rewriting the entire grammar of elections in India. And if you look at a few things together, when we went to see the Election Commission, Chief Election Commissioner and his fellow election commissioners, they were sitting there. And the Election Commissioner, he told us in a very threatening tone that you are dealing with a new Election Commission. So I had to interrupt him. I said, what is this new Election Commission? We believe that Election Commission is a constitutional body which exists in perpetuity. So there may be new election commissioners coming and going, but the commission remains. But then he, of course, said, okay, we're a new team, fine. But then it got me thinking, and I realized that this is actually indeed a new election commission. Because earlier there was no law in the country about the appointment of election commissioners. There was some kind of a vacuum. And the Supreme Court had suggested a 3-member committee comprising the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition, and the Chief Justice of India to decide on the appointment of election commissioners. And immediately, the Modi government came up using its majority, brute majority in parliament. So they immediately had a legislation. So now you have a 3-member committee, yes, 3-member, but 2 of those members are from the same government. So the Prime Minister and one of his cabinet colleagues. In the present case, it is Narendra Modi and Amit Shah. So if Narendra Modi and Amit Shah, and maybe poor Rahul Gandhi is also there as the leader of opposition, what is Rahul Gandhi going to do in that 3-member committee? So the election commission will be chosen by the government of the day. So if the election commission probably thinks that all that we have to do, we have to work in partnership, in tandem with the government, and we need not bother about anything else. So look at this, the new rules for the appointment of election commission. Then this new push for one nation, one elections. One nation, one election. Of course, when elections started in India, we had one election. But then as the democracy evolved, as the country evolved, as the republic went on, so we had the calendar changing. There are some governments which didn't survive the full term. There are midterm elections, and there were even midterm elections in the Lok Sabha. So that's how the entire electoral calendar got changed. And now if somebody comes and says we want to turn the clock back, and there has to be one single election which will decide on the parliament, on assemblies and panchayats. So that is the entire, every election has its own context. A Lok Sabha election has its own context. An assembly election has its own context. A panchayat election, a Jila Parishad election will have its own context. So if you make kind of bulldoze, flatten everything into one single narrative and one single kind of context for the whole elections, there will be nothing left of India's federalism and the democracy as it, we have been knowing it all these years. So these two, and third is this SIR, which will completely redraw the electoral rolls. So look at it this way, and then we can easily see when Amit Shah says that we have not come here just to rule for 5 years. We are here to rule for 50 years. They openly say this. They openly say this, and in fact, some people probably in Kerala and Tamil Nadu may still be believing that, well, this is something only happening in North India. Here, it's not, it's still very far away. But I think it's not happening in North. If it is happening in North India, it's a matter of time it happens here. No part of India is secure. In every state, every community, every political geography of India, every social equation, everything is vulnerable. So when they clearly say that we are here to rule for 50 years, they mean it. They mean it that we are going to have a kind of pattern of elections where election after election it will produce majority for us, will be electorally reproduced. So electoral reproduction of automatic electoral reproduction, this is how fascism is to work. Some people often, we have forgotten our histories of fascism. Some people believe that there can be no fascism in India because we still have an electoral system. Well, in Italy and Germany, they had electoral systems. That's how they came to power. That's how Mussolini came to power. That's how Hitler came to power. And once entrenched in power, that's how they rewrote the entire, their electoral systems and created a system where effectively they had one-party states. So this is what exactly the BJP is trying to do. And the other, I think 2 years ago, the BJP president, JP Nadda, and you can just, they are running an NDA government in cooperation with the Janata Dal United, a regional party. They are having Nitish Kumar, they are forced to have Nitish Kumar as their chief minister in Bihar. Yet, here is JP Nadda who comes to Patna and says that in future there will be only one party left in India, which is the BJP. The days of the regional parties are over. They have the gall to say this in Patna, where they are actually using a regional party and having a leader from that regional party as the chief minister. They openly come and tell that this is what the kind of India we are looking at. So this is, for us, the term for this kind of this kind of arrogance of power, this kind of denial of democracy, this kind of bulldozing of all institutions. The only name, useful reference that we have is fascism, which many people believe is something 20th century. And we are in the 21st century. So there is this temptation that add this prefix neo to everything. So because we are in the 21st century, so maybe fascism is too old school. So give it a new name, neo-fascism. Fine. I don't have, as long as we do not lull ourselves into some kind of illusion that neo-fascism is something, less dangerous, less invasive, less destructive, than the original fascism. This is some diluted version of fascism. It is not. So add as many suffixes or prefixes you like, but let us be very clear about it, that fascism means fascism. And in fact, in India, when we are talking about fascism, we are not talking about fascism simply because there is Adani and Ambani, simply because neoliberalism has reached an unsustainable stage. No. We are talking about fascism because this system here, the BJP party here, is led by the RSS, and which actually appeared exactly 100 years ago. Exactly 100 years ago, when Hitler and Mussolini, they were emerging. And in fact, the RSS emerged with direct inspiration from Mussolini. And eventually they said that we'll have to make profitable draw profitable lessons from Hitler's Germany. So this is what they have been doing. So this has been their ideology from day one. Nothing more, nothing less. So from day one, here is a fascist outfit with its fascist ideology. The only difference was that in Germany, in Italy, because of the European politics then, they came to power. They came to power, they wrought havoc, and then after 45, because of the Second World War and the dynamics of Second World War, they were militarily defeated. They were militarily, fascism got defeated. And in India, we were in an anti-colonial freedom movement stage where naturally the RSS could not become a very prominent force then. So they remained in the margins. They remained a marginal force, an anti-imperialist, anti-colonial freedom movement that dominated, and the entire spectrum, from Gandhi, Nehru kind of Congress to the communists to Ambedkar to Perrier to all kinds of social justice schools in India. So we all were part and parcel of the freedom movement. The only single ideological stream which worked against the freedom movement, not only stayed aloof, not only just remained indifferent to the freedom movement, but actively worked against the freedom movement, was the RSS, the Hindu Mahasabha and RSS, the Hindutva lobby. So it's only thing is they didn't have the power. So once they have the power, they will obviously use that power for the fullest execution of their agenda. And this is precisely what they have been doing. Earlier, because didn't have that kind of power, they had to adopt a calibrated, gradualist kind of an approach. So they said when NDA was formed first, okay, Article 370, Ram Mandir and Uniform Civil Code, these three most contentious issues, will shelve them for the time being. They never gave them up. They never abandoned this agenda. They said, well, we will take our time. So then they got the power and they have done it. And now that in power, they are doing everything. So if we are right now facing a very systematic kind of fascist offensive, so today is in fact 5th of August, and 2019, 5th of August was when Kashmir was, Article 370 was, call it abrogated, call it deactivated. And not only it was Article 370, but the Kashmir, the entire constitutional status of Kashmir, even the statehood of Kashmir, that was taken away. Never before we had examples of Goa becoming a state, a union territory becoming a state, but we never had a state, a full-scale state being reduced to the status of a union territory. That has never happened in India. But 6 years ago, that happened. And it's a quirk of history that the governor, Satpal Malik, who was the governor then of Kashmir, under whose kind of governorship this whole thing happened, who subsequently turned against BJP and spoke a lot of truth about Pulwama. He also passed away today on the 6th anniversary of the bifurcation of Kashmir into two. So that was the biggest attack on federalism. I mean, we talk about attacks on federalism, there are a lot of other things. But when it comes to Kashmir, a lot of India actually looked at it through different lens. Not as an attack on federalism, but because it is a Muslim-dominated state, question of Pakistan, question of national security, and so on and so forth. But they clearly did it. So occasionally, at times, they will maybe beat a retreat, like the farm laws, the 3 farm laws, they beat a retreat. Once they realize that with these farm laws, they cannot win the elections in UP, before the UP Assembly elections, they beat a bit of retreat and had some kind of an understanding with the farmers' movement. But now the same thing they are trying to do to the back door in the form of a new agricultural marketing policy and all that. So the entire agenda is very, very clear. SIR is probably the latest in this whole fascist offensive. So this, as Comrade Madhavan Kurti was telling us, the anti-fascist politics. So I think this whole, probably in India we never believed that we took the constitution for granted. We took a lot of things for granted. So now we realize that nothing can be taken for granted. So when the constitution can no longer be taken for granted. And the constitution, I'm not getting into the details, but just a preamble to the constitution, which I consider is kind of a manifesto of our times. And the anti-CAA movement, they adopted they started the collecting reading of the preamble and holding the tricolor in their hand. So the preamble tells us 2 things. It defines the character of the republic and it outlines the kind of social contract with the citizens of India. So the character of the republic, sovereign, democratic, socialist, secular republic. The BJP, of course, they went to Supreme Court saying that socialist and secular, these two words, these two epithets were inserted only during the emergency as part of constitutional amendment, so they should be removed. But at least then the Supreme Court clearly said, no, these words are here to stay. They are part of the basic structure of the Constitution. I'm not sure if it again goes to the Supreme Court in the coming days. We have a new Chief Justice. What will the Supreme Court say? But the problem of the BJP is not just with these socialist and secular words. Their problem is with the entire republic. Their problem is with the entire Constitution. And there was absolutely nothing secret about it. When the Constitution was being adopted on the 26th of November 1949, the RSS organizer was writing an editorial about it. And they were saying that there is nothing Indian about this Constitution. This Constitution is some kind of a foreign import. So this Constitution has no roots in India. There is no reflection of Manusmriti in this Constitution. So Manusmriti as their ideal Constitution. So in 1949, the RSS was honest enough to openly declare this. Today, the same RSS, the same BJP, when they are voted to power, they will say the Constitution is our holy book, and this is what Narendra Modi keeps saying. And of course, when they say the Constitution is our holy book, so they are saying that if you say anything against the government, it is the government which actually is the custodian of the Constitution. The constitutional body, Election Commission, is a constitutional body. So if you oppose the SIR, you are actually insulting the Constitution. This is what they mean by the Constitution, of course. So this entire Constitution, the BJP wants to do away with it. Sovereignty and democracy. Democracy, if the SIR is applied across India, and if elections are overseen by this kind of an election commission, so there will be nothing democratic left. And we all know that is essentially democracy in India essentially means elections. Beyond the elections, we hardly have much democracy, much participatory democracy. So elections were the only ultimate kind of fundamental right that the people had. And if that will be taken away, then what will happen? Sovereignty, we talk about sovereignty, and now ours is probably the only country where which has said not a single thing against Trump. I mean, our Indian people, Indian citizens, they have been sent back in handcuffs, giving our people, our government keeps talking about infiltrators, Ghuspetia, Bangladeshis and all that. So the same has been said about Indian citizens in America. They are infiltrators, illegal immigrants, and they have been sent back, and our government has completely kept quiet. At August, 1st of August, they increased our tariff, 25% tariff on Indian exports, and not simply because Indian tariffs are high according to America, but because India continues to do business with Russia, because we buy weapons from Russia, buy oil from other countries. So the America openly says that you do business only with us. So Atmanirbhar Bharat should be completely America Nirbhar Bharat. No Atmanirbhar. It has to be completely dependent on the United States. So you allow yourselves to become a new colony of the United States. So this is what has happened to our sovereignty. And America says this, Trump says this, and our government completely keeps quiet. So it is not just socialism and secularism, just two words, two adjectives, which are in danger because of the BJP. It is democracy, it is sovereignty, it is the entire constitution. So, and exactly the way this fascist project worked in Germany, they created an internal enemy. And we have already created an internal enemy. This kind of Islamophobia. I mean, okay, Hindu-Muslim contradictions, some kind of rivalry, some kind of cultural contradiction, some kind of different religious practices, they have always been there. But there was never this kind of hate, never this kind of hate politics in this country. So today Islamophobia has become the policy of the state. So we have already created, and if we create through this disenfranchisement, if we create a large body of disempowered, disenfranchised citizens, So who will actually have to live in India at the mercy of the state and at the mercy of the so-called different majorities. It may be a linguistic majority, it may be a religious majority, it may be a political majority in some state, but majorities, majoritarian kind of rule. So then what will happen? We will have a permanently vulnerable group of second-grade citizens, which is precisely what fascism thrives on, and just pitting the rest of the society against that vulnerable, marginalized internal enemy. So exactly, if you look at it, you tick all the boxes of fascism, and I think what we need to do is definitely a broad-based struggle. Now, broad-based unity, broad-based struggle, it cannot just be some kind of electoral understanding. Electoral understanding is, of course, that is important because even now, the BJP, RSS, they do not really have, even in this manipulated kind of a system, their votes are still around 40% only. So we still have 60% people who are not with the fascists, who are not under the control of the fascists, and this means a lot. If we can unite these numbers in an effective electoral kind of system, then that can obviously provide a lot of resistance, that can be a bulwark of resistance. But beyond that, we need a whole lot of struggles. What is fascism? I mean, in the days of the Comintern, Germany and all, so it was defined as the open terrorist dictatorship. So dictatorship of terror, dictator rule of fear. And today, this is what has become to India. India has become, from a republic of freedom, we have become a republic of fear. So if we become afraid, if they can inject this fear, instill this fear in us, and if we start disciplining ourselves, what to say, what not to say, how much to say, what kind of protest to do, or what kind of protest not to do. So if we absorb this fear and start, surrendering to this fear, then half their job is already done without having to do anything, just by terrorizing the people. So this is what they are trying to do, fear, and that's why I particularly extend my salute to all those courageous people. Somebody like Father Stan Swami, who says that if I have to pay a price for speaking the truth, so I'm prepared to pay the price, and he paid the price. He didn't surrender. So all these, even individuals, they do not belong to any party, they do not probably have any so-called ideology, but truth is their ideology, courage is their ideology, courage is their flag. So people who have truth and courage as their kind of flag, and who are there in Bhima Koregaon cases, in the Delhi riots cases, Umar Khalid or Gulfisha Fatima, or all these people in Maharashtra jail. So my special salute to all of them, all these people who are showing us the way fascism has to be combated. So we need a lot of courage. We need a lot of unity. The farmers' movement demonstrated a model. So many organizations, hundreds of them, for such a long period of time, they were together, united in their resolve, and they showed it to us that it is possible, even in this era, that you can push this government back. You can force this government to repeal the laws. And they gave us an example. This is the demonstration. And that has actually, that farmers' movement again did not appear from nowhere. I think it was the Shaheen Bagh movement, it was the anti-CAA movement, which basically was the role model that the farmers' movement followed. So the Shaheen Bagh model, where we had this unprecedented kind of participation of Muslim women. I mean, nowhere in the world probably we have ever seen anything of this, on this scale, anything of this sort, where people, across generations, from the 8-year-old to the 80-year-old, so fighting for what I call equal citizenship, for free citizenship, for the constitution, for this republic. So initially, a lot of the people thought that this is something which only applies to the Muslim community. It is their struggle. No, it became their struggle because they were the first to sense it, because the Muslims were being singled out and said that all other religions, if you are coming from Bangladesh or Pakistan or Afghanistan, if you are a Hindu, if you are from other religions, any religion other than Islam, any religion, any community other than Muslims, then you will be treated in one way, and if you are a Muslim, then you will be treated differently. So they reacted against it, of course. But all of us should react against this. This is discrimination. And if there is any discrimination, the first thing the Constitution says is that non-discrimination, no discrimination on the basis of religion or basis of language or the basis of caste. And we are really, today when you look back, earlier we used to think that of course our Constitution, there are a lot of limitations. But think about it, in 1949, the Constitution was being adopted, being written after the partition had already happened. When the country has passed through that kind of trauma. So after having suffered the trauma of partition, yet the freedom movement had given us a kind of national consciousness, a kind of nationalism, a kind of idea of a republic, where we could adopt a constitution which promised that this, we the people of India, we give to us this constitution where there will be no discrimination. So of course the NCAA movement, that was a trailblazer thing, and they reacted against discrimination. Today I say the same thing about the Waqf Board legislation. It is not just about the Waqf Board. Waqf Board is of course the entire existence of the Muslim community. It revolves around it, all their religious freedom, the minority cultural institutions, all their madrasas and qabristans, everything. But it is the question of religious freedom. So if one community's religious freedom is attacked today, tomorrow it is going to be the church. In fact, the RSS had a write-up in Organizer, which they probably subsequently withdrew, or they are downplaying. Somebody wrote in the Organizer that it is not the Waqf Board. The biggest landlord in this country is the church. They have more land property, and if you are looking at land, then actually you should be looking at the church. So tomorrow it will be the church, then it will be the Gurdwara, it will be all the minority sects within Hinduism. After all, at the end of the day, what is Hinduism? It's not a regimented, that kind of monolithic religion. It's a religion where there are multiple sects. So within the Hinduism also, there will be majority sect and minority sects, and the minority sects, they will lose all their freedom. So this is about the loss of our religious freedom and minority rights. So that's why when we are losing all our rights, I think we have to fight unitedly, fight together. And we communists, certainly this is also the 100th year of the Communist Party of India. And the CPM, of course, they observed their centenary in 1920. The communists have two different opinions in this country. So call it 1920, call it 1925. So we are also a 100-year-old movement in this country. And the time is that we need bigger, more sustainable, more viable, more effective, more dynamic unity among our communists. When something like Operation Kagar is being conducted in Chhattisgarh, and they say it is a state policy that to have to make India Maoist free by March 2026, and now Amit Shah says we won't need that kind of time, we'll do it before that. And the way he is celebrating these murders in Parliament, let us not look at it saying this is being done only to Maoists. If it is being done to Maoists, it is also being done to Marxists, it is also being done to Marxist-Leninists, it is being done to every socialist, anybody who talks about social transformation in this country. In fact, the Maoists themselves, they said, well, we are ready for talks. So when they were ready for talks, they offered ceasefire, and I am told that Basava Raju probably was caught alive. He should have been tried under law, and yet he was killed. So this kind of Operation Kagar, it is not just ideological witch hunt against one particular stream of the communist movement. It is against the entire, it's an anti-communist witch hunt. It is an anti-left witch hunt, this whole Operation Kagar. It is in fact an attack on the Adivasis. It has nothing to do with Maoism. Himanshu Kumar, who is a Gandhian, he has been banished from Chhattisgarh. Manish Kunjam, who used to be a CPI MLA from Bastar, and he fights for the cause of Bastar against militarization, he is also being treated the same way. Chhattisgarh Mulvasi Manch, which is a democratic organization, fights peacefully. It has been proscribed, it has been banned. So it is about separation of the Adivasis, it is about the suppressing the constitution, it is about anybody who demands fifth schedule, implementation of fifth schedule, rights over resources. So let us look at it this way. So I'll just conclude by again reminding us of that poem which emerged from the lived experience of fascism. Pastor Niemöller's poem that first they came for communists, I didn't say anything because I was not a communist. Then they came up for socialists, I didn't say anything because I was not a socialist. They came for trade union leaders, I didn't say anything because I was not a trade union activist. And finally, when they came for me, there was none to speak for me. So this is the kind of situation we're having. So what we need in the face of this fascism, we need a lot of courage. We need a lot of courage in every area of our life, in every field of our practice, be it culture, be it journalism, be it any kind of activism, be it education, be it any field. We need a lot of courage not to put up with this nonsense, to fight it. And if you have to fight anything, you may have to pay a price, but that is nothing in the face of the kind of slavery which is being imposed on us. So this, we need a courage, we need more unity, we need a lot more clarity, we need very sustained kind of struggle. And this India alliance which came up just before the 2024 election, there are some people who say this was just a one election attempt. I don't look at it that way. I mean, of course it came up before the 24 elections. It is a need of the hour. It is the need of the hour that in India today, because if the BJP has grown, it has grown at the expense of everybody. Some people say that it has only grown at the expense of CPM. I won't say that. It has grown at the expense of Congress. It has grown at the expense of CPM in West Bengal. Maybe it's also growing in Kerala. I don't know. It has also grown at the cost of BSP in Uttar Pradesh. Mayawati, I mean, think about her. She was Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh for 4 terms. And today there is not a single MLA, not a single MP from that party. What happened to that party? So it is growing across the board at the cost of every ideology, at the cost of every political stream. It is growing. It is growing. So all of us who are today, if we fail to look at and understand who the common enemy is, so then I think we'll be doing it only at our own peril. So we need each other. We need each other. Of course, it may be electorally a bit difficult. So what happens in Kerala, what happens in Delhi, what happens in West Bengal, where the political geography, the distribution of power is different. That is one thing. But beyond that, I think it has to be very, very clear that we need a broad ideological spectrum. The kind of thing which happened in the freedom movement. As I said, freedom movement, only the fascists, they were against the freedom movement. Every other non-fascist ideology in India, they were all co-partners in the freedom movement. We all were fighting in our own ways. The ways were different maybe, but we were fighting for the same cause. So today again, I think we need to do that. And obviously when we need to wage a multi-pronged kind of resistance, because the fascists are here to, stop us everywhere. It is taking the country back. So stopping us, it's a republic, as I said, a republic of fear. And Rabindranath Tagore said that where the freedom mind is without fear and the head is held high. So we need fearlessness. We need freedom for each of our activities everywhere. So this battle between fear and freedom, this battle between hate and love or harmony, it is a all-pervasive kind of battle. It has to be fought on every front, in every possible way, and that's probably where communists will have to, in spite of our limited organizational strength and maybe our declining electoral significance at the moment in some states. Some states, Indian communists were known by West Bengal, they were known by Kerala, they were known by Tripura. It's only now that people have started looking at Bihar. Okay, I mean, there is one state where we are growing a bit. But in all these states, maybe electorally we'll have to revive again. But definitely the kind of clarity which is expected from communists, the kind of broadness of heart, largeness of heart, and the need for unity. If we understand that, I think we'll have to be able to also practice that. And that kind of a thing, it's a now or never situation. It's an unprecedented situation. This is something which cannot be compared to any chapter of Indian post-independence history. We can talk about that emergency and this emergency. Fine. That emergency was a declared emergency. It was an emergency which lasted only for 19 months. And what created that emergency? Just think about it. What triggered the emergency was that case against Indira Gandhi, where an election was disqualified by an High Court, Allahabad High Court, and for misuse of the government power. If that kind of misuse of government power, if that is held against the Prime Minister today, then today I think India's Prime Ministers and most of the Chief Ministers, nobody can be in office because that has become routine today. And so that happened. And just think about it, that 77, when the elections were happening, the emergency was not yet withdrawn. In the middle of the emergency, India had an election, and that election overthrew the government which had promulgated emergency. So even in then, we had a lot of power left in this whole democratic system, which is being gradually taken away from us. So that's why this is a completely new situation for us, and a new situation demands new kind of response from all of us. So history can be a good reference point. We need to learn our lessons from history, but we can never be prisoners of history. We have to live in the present and fight for the future. And I think that this is for us in 2025. After 24, we thought probably we have managed to dent this government to a large extent. And from UP, from Ayodhya, from a general seat, that too the temple town of Ayodhya, a Dalit leader came to parliament. That shows the potential of the people, the power of democracy, the power of the constitution. So we thought that we have managed to inflict a few blows, dent the power of fascism a bit. But then, see, whatever is happening since then, the Maharashtra election and the Delhi election, the Haryana elections, and now Bihar elections, the challenges are too high. Bihar will of course fight back with all your goodwill, good wishes, and I really believe that Bihar can become not just an assembly election. After all, we are having only one assembly election this year. Bihar can become part of India's nationwide battle for democracy. We all can stand with Bihar in fighting this whole electoral kind of blow. And I'm still hopeful that we'll be able to turn the tide there. But come what may, regardless of the result of the Bihar elections, I think we cannot afford to let fascism get entrenched any deeper, consolidate itself any more. So there can be absolutely no mistaking the danger which we have. It is not any remote danger anymore. It is something very close. It is very physical. It is not just digital. It is not just something spiritual, not just something ideological. It is happening on a physical level. It is happening, it's like a cinema coming close to your home. So it is happening everywhere. So this kind of fascist threat to India, which can eclipse democracy and destroy all that we have probably taken for granted all these years. So we need to fight back, and fight back we will. We'll fight, we'll win. Thank you very much.